This is Support is Sexy, episode 43, with Make Only Magic creator, Sydney Campos. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am so excited to have you here because you know it just would not be the same without you. So today I'm excited to welcome my friend Sydney Campos. And Sydney is the creator of a new company called Make Only Magic, which I think is just magical. And Sydney's company is all about combining marketing, strategy, all the things that businesses, especially small businesses and solopreneurs need, but also combining it with holistic practices, life coaching, things that really get to our lives as well as our business. So on this episode, Sydney talks to us about rediscovering your magic and really redefining your magic and what it means to you. And she gives a great definition in this episode. Sydney also talks about how to thrive in this new economy, why going through recovery for her was a transformative part of her journey to spirituality and self-love. She also talks about the power of going into any job, position, or opportunity, knowing what you want to learn from it, which I thought was very good. Sydney also talks about the importance of knowing when it's time to move on. And if you don't know, your body will certainly tell you. Also knowing when to say, this is not a good fit for me, and knowing that it's okay to say, this is not a good fit for me. She also talks about being aware of the curse of knowledge, which we go into depth about, and how to have fun even when it's scary. One other thing to mention, be sure to go to supportisSexypodcast.com for a special gift that Sydney is offering just to our Support is Sexy listeners. So I know you're going to love this episode. We had a lot of fun and it is quite magical, if I must say so myself. So without further ado, Sydney Campos. So Sydney, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk to you. I love it.
Yay. So when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Wow. I think I've really been an entrepreneur since I was, really young, actually. Like I've always kind of had this mentality. Like I definitely never wanted anyone to be my boss. Mm-hmm. And I always, I remember even just really young, like always looking for opportunities to, earn extra money, do extra chores, doing like little creative ventures to, just make some cash to like afford the fun things that I wanted to do. Everything from like making a little lemonade stand, as a lot of people do, to finding ways to get more babysitting clients, even when I was in middle school. And I think my parents really helped bring that out in me also. Like this actually just hit me last weekend. My mom is a huge influence on me. Like my mom is such an entrepreneur and she's never had a like traditional job and she's always had her own businesses in some form. And, it's funny that didn't really dawn on me until very recently, but I would say that she's a huge influence on me, like having grown up around, a total entrepreneur my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Having seen her and what she did and what she created and
Mm-hmm.
it impacted you. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Now, what was Sydney like as a little girl? What was a young Sydney like?
Yeah, I think, I think about this actually often. It's great to remember, I think I still have a lot of my same qualities, like when I really think about it. When I was really young, before any kind of like worry or stress or, kind of real world responsibilities came into the picture, at the core, I always just wanted people to be happy and to have fun. Those are the things that were most important to me, ever since I was little. I remember even being in kindergarten and just trying to like organize everyone to like play a game and together. I really wanted people to be like unified, and community was always very important to me. And I remember being very sensitive to, any feelings of like injustice or things that I saw that were like, just like awful awful like problems in society. Like I grew up in the middle of San Francisco pretty much for most of my life. And so surrounded by a lot of like homelessness and, poverty at times. I was really sensitive to those things and had a hard time understanding, why. Why is it that somebody is sleeping outside? And so just even as a little kid, before understanding that, just having this really deep connection to other people and wanting them to feel good and be taken care of.
Did you feel like it was something? So you were a compassionate child. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's a really heartfelt, heart-centered child. What do you remember if you felt like you wanted to, not only that you observed it, but that you wanted to fix it as well? Like, were you one of those? I know I was one of those children. Why is it like that? What can I do? I don't know if you were like that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh man. Well, like, I mean, I really, I would say I was definitely compassionate, but also, now that I've learned a lot more about myself growing up, like super empathic, right? So actually I felt people's pain. I really felt this like suffering that was happening. Even I would say like on the global level, I was really sensitive to like even movies I would watch about like war and just violence and would really feel that pain like it was my own.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was really hard. As a kid, I didn't really have any tools, and I just was sensitive and I would cry. I would cry. I was seeing people in the street homeless. I didn't understand. I really didn't get it. And I think my parents did their best to like help explain things to me and support me. But again, a lot of these things I had to learn as I grew up and get tools to work with.
Now, how do you feel like those, who you were, who you are really, has transferred into the kind of business that you've created today with Make Only Magic, which I love that name. How do you feel like just being who you are has translated the natural parts of you into your business today?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for this, platform. This company that I've created is such an embodiment of like who I am at the core. And it's a dream that's been in the making for a while. And, I wasn't ready to really step up and do it until recently. And it just feels like such a gift to be doing something that's in total alignment with, that little girl that I described who really is like, that's me. And, my business is really based on helping people, creating unity, creating more compassion and understanding, whether that's like at an individual level and coaching people through, transformational work. Or even with business strategy clients and really helping support entrepreneurs and startups and brands that have a vision to create products that are really going to help connect people. I find that it's no mistake that I've, certainly attracted these clients, even though they're very diverse and unique in terms of their industry and kind of product offering in many respects. But the common thread through everything is really this passion for connection and authenticity and allowing people more tools and pathways to connect and form, new community. So I'm really, it feels really good to like take a step back and look at that, because sometimes I'm like, wow, I'm working with so many different people. It's so like diverse and, I don't really have a niche, if I were to explain a niche in a typical traditional marketing sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I've created my own niche, of what I like to call, conscious creators and change makers. So I've kind of created my own little niche, which feels very aligned with what I love.
I love that. Now, how do you think that ended up being something that you were able to do? Or in other words, why do you think more and more companies are attracted to your type of business or your type of service? Especially, like you said, it's not like it's all fitness companies, for example, which would make sense, or all holistic companies. It's a really wide range of brands.
Yeah, I think that, and I even saw this as I left my prior agency and, working with, where I was working with, pretty notable global brands. And I feel like there's a shift happening right now. We see it manifesting in a lot of different ways, both on, individual levels with people being really interested in meditation and yoga and health and wellness. There's this surge of interest in, healthy living, which is beautiful. But then from a brand perspective, I think that there's also this shift that we see kind of mirroring this cultural shift, where brands are noticing that they really need to have more meaning in their communication strategy and their product development strategy in order to reach the new consumer, and people talk a lot about millennials and they need meaning and experience, and it's true and it's great. I'm so happy about this shift. It's no longer about, I want to buy something because of how it's going to make me look. It's not that simple anymore. That component certainly exists still, but there's a deeper meaning now that people are really yearning for, and brands are needing to step up to meet that need. And so, luckily for me, that's exactly what I'm passionate about helping people create, is really, digging into the messaging and the product strategy, and really looking at, what is this really going to provide? What type of experience is this going to create for people? And it's exciting to work with brands that are willing to have that conversation and are really willing to, it also comes from, working with people that are really passionate, so I think that there's a lot of fun things going on in the startup scene right now, where people are excited to be, taking risks, and they're kind of really, there are some cool examples of things happening in a very different level in terms of like communication, marketing, social media, strategy stuff. And I think it will only continue to kind of take over the mainstream more and more.
Now, where did you began before starting your business a couple of years ago in marketing, right? That's your background?
Yeah, more or less. I have a very strange path. I guess, well, I don't know. Maybe we all do. I mean,
yes, we all do.
We all do, right? There's not like a one way.
Right.
Like people always ask me, they're like, oh, did you study marketing in college? And I'm like, no, I studied political science and Latin American studies, and thought I was either going to work in a nonprofit or be a lawyer.
Again, did you go to school in San Francisco, or where did you go to school?
Oh, I went to school at UC Santa Cruz, which is basically like, it's for anybody that doesn't know, it's like a summer camp, like mountain, beach, hideaway.
Nice.
So beautiful. Yeah.
Nice. And you studied political science, you were saying?
Yeah, and I think, again, there's that thread of like social justice and being really passionate about making a difference in the world. And I think growing up, it was instilled in me that, to make a difference, I needed to be involved in like, systematic change some way, either through nonprofit advocacy or the legal route. And yeah, and so I really pursued that for a while. And then when I moved to New York, I was like, I'm going to work in nonprofits, right? That's what I want to do. There's so many great organizations in New York. And then, I had this realization, as I'm sure many people do, that, oh my God, I have to pay my student loans. I need to make like money. I can't necessarily support myself with the types of opportunities that I was encountering in nonprofits. And, found my way into, I think my first job in New York was in financial services, and I was a client service manager at a planning firm. And it was awesome. I was working with this like, super inspiring woman, entrepreneur, CEO. She was incredible, and learned so much from her, but learned very quickly that, okay, I need to be doing something creative. This really isn't for me. Like I could see how I was helping people in this role, but, everyone has finances. Everyone needs to figure out how to plan with their money, but didn't really resonate with me because it felt like I was serving a very privileged group. I wanted to kind of, that was important to me. So, and then all I started with was, okay, let's do something creative. And I started interviewing at different media agencies, and, just ended up kind of in this path of digital media and advertising and strategy that the more I look back, especially getting into PR, the last 2 years, PR is it's so similar to politics, it kind of was like this full circle of like, oh, advocacy, communicating ideas to help shift people's perceptions,
right, and shaping a story.
Yeah. So it's actually like, it makes total sense. And actually PR is so fun, and you're able to be so creative and really, I think in a lot of cases, make a quicker impact than you would maybe going the legal route with certain things. Think of like commercials that you may have seen that have really, maybe subconsciously even push the envelope on your thoughts on, even gay marriage, or, a relationship dynamic, or what a family is supposed to look like, or, self-driving cars or driverless cars, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really fun time to be in that realm, and it's fun to see the connection of how, it all makes sense looking back.
Right. Looking back now, do you
Yeah.
think that it was important for you to, even if you didn't know it at the time, but the fact that you've had so many different experiences, how it all sort of led to what you're doing now or plays into what you're doing now? Because I think sometimes people, when they just get out of school, or like you said, you're looking for, okay, I'm going to try nonprofit, I'm going to do this. And we sometimes get stuck on one path as opposed to being open to experimenting.
Yeah, whenever I meet anybody that's a younger college student, I just encourage them to have as much fun as possible and really take classes that are in things that you love. Like, have fun. School is about learning and having as much fun as possible and being inspired. It's not actually about, getting the major that's going to then determine your career
For the rest of your life, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, and this has changed, and maybe other people that you've interviewed have really spoken to this. I wonder, because I feel like, to some extent, entrepreneurs, especially women, were a byproduct of this cultural shift of like the new economy, right? And we hear about the sharing economy and the freelancing economy, and these are really recent terms, and it's happened very fast. I would say like what I'm doing would not have been possible even like 5 years ago necessarily, with the advent of social media and different digital tools that now exist, and my ability to be totally mobile and do my work from anywhere. I mean, it's in the digital nomad culture rise and
Right.
all these things. So I mean, I encourage younger people and just people who are maybe feeling like, okay, I don't even understand this. I need to have my path. What is my path? We're in a time where you can create that for yourself. And I think it's just a matter of breaking out of some of this old paradigm, which I think our parents really grew up with and maybe instilled in us to some extent of, you go to school and you do one thing and that's it. And you're kind of, limited. And I mean, one last thing to that point, I don't know if you've ever been to Berlin, but
No, I haven't.
oh my gosh, you have to go. It's so cool. So Berlin is such a good example of what we're talking about. Like, I went there and I was just immediately just in awe. I would meet so many people who were like, yeah, I went to med school. I'm a doctor, but, I just quit that so I could be a writer and I work at a restaurant.
And now, is that the kind of culture that it is there, that it encourages
I
do
think
what
so.
you want?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we could talk about the history there forever, but there's some crazy stuff that's happened there, and I think it's just really supported people in this having this like culture of reinvention, which I think we see in New York to some extent, but there it's like on the extreme of like I'm a trained, biologist, but I'm choosing to be a wine consultant instead,
Right.
or whatever, because like it's just the old model. Like people want to do what makes them happy, and actually they're able to live there without the pressure that, some of us face here with needing to very high cost of living. And that becomes a challenge for us to really like fully delve into that of like, I'm just doing what I love. But I love New York so much. I think the energy here is like, makes you work harder for what you want. And then you get to reap the rewards even, more deeply, it feels like.
I love that. Now, your business, as we talked about, Make Only Magic, you help clients create magic in their lives and businesses, as we talked about, through things like meditation and holistic health. What would you say are 3 tips from you for women entrepreneurs to embrace their quote unquote magic?
Oh, I love it. I love to see magic like just used so much more too. Or maybe I'm just noticing it because I'm
You're
like,
probably because you're magical right now.
because
You're
I'm
in a
all
magical
in that.
space. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. So, and I guess I should start by just saying like I define magic as, the ability to see your reality in such a different way that you have a completely new experience. And I heard that in a yoga class like years ago and it blew my mind. I think I like said out loud like, whoa, like
Right. Don't you love when something hits you like that?
Yeah, it just hit me like at the soul level. It was like, oh my God, that's so real. I love that. So, that's what magic is. And everyone has the ability to create magic in their lives. And that just means, creating a transformation so that you have a totally new experience and a new perception. It's all about empowerment. And I would say like for women entrepreneurs, like, my people, I love seeing so many more women stepping up and, creating these amazing visions that they have. The things that I would recommend are just, personally that I've had to work on as well are just, self-care. So, being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, it's like, okay, when are you taking time for yourself to really breathe, scheduling in time to do movement or just be still, you know, eating well, cooking for yourself, taking care of yourself, you know. Oftentimes I think, especially people that are very heart-centered entrepreneurs, we're thinking about everybody else. And we care so deeply about helping everyone else. We give so much of ourselves that, you know, sometimes we're the last ones to really, you know, be taken care of. So that's our job. We have to take care of ourselves. I'd say that's the biggest lesson I'm continually trying to practice. And then, you know, oh my gosh, how fitting for your whole community you've built. I would say number 2 is, you know, create your support network and really mindfully create your mentors, your teachers, the people that you can lean on for, you know, not just your business, but your life and support. You know, I'm a life coach and I think I'll always work with life coaches, and, you know, that type of support has just been instrumental in everything that I do all the time. It's so important to have a sounding board for ideas that I have, you know, decisions that I may have to make. You know, sometimes it can feel lonely being an entrepreneur. It's like, oh my God, I have the world on my shoulders. I'm doing so much. Like, nobody can do this vision except me. Like, it's mine, feeling so tightly held to it. And so really being vulnerable and letting people in to help you and partnering up. And the flip side of that is, like, you know, giving back too, and knowing when, I wonder if this is number 3, I think would be finding ways to really give back in a fulfilling way, you know, so balancing the self-care, taking care of yourself first, having your network to tap into for support in all different areas. But then also, like, giving back in really meaningful ways, you know, so I think knowing about creating boundaries and learning about, you know, what feels really good for you to give back. Maybe it's mentoring a college student or mentoring a younger entrepreneur, helping coach someone, volunteering. You know, I do like volunteer yoga class sometimes, which is so fulfilling and beautiful and just feels like it's feeding my soul. So, you know, giving in a lot of ways can sometimes actually be a form of receiving, as long as you're doing it in a way that feels really aligned with what you're, you know, passionate about. And so all those things that I just mentioned totally are mutually reinforcing of one another. And I find that, like, most tips, you know, it's like they all kind of come down to the same thing, like really just taking care of yourself and allowing yourself to be held, and you know, noticing all the resources that you really have available to you. I think sometimes it's like we don't notice how much we really have, you know, waiting for us to just take advantage of.
Right. That's great. Those are excellent tips. Excellent advice overall.
Thank you.
Yeah,
well, I've had to live it, so
exactly. Now, tell us how about that. How you've had to, because creating a business like this and working with clients to move into this sort of quote unquote magical space, and the definition that you gave, which was so great about magic and being magical. How have you had to make the transition for yourself? I would think, I imagine it's an ongoing process, but I would think you had to do some work for yourself too to get to that point.
Wow. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with that. You know, I'm constantly changing and evolving. I kind of believe, I do believe today that, you know, I have to be constantly changing or else I don't really have an option. You know, I have to be constantly evolving and growing, and I know that's just what feels good and that's what's best for me. So that's my self-care, is like, how am I growing today? What am I doing differently that's pushing me out of my comfort zone so that I'm evolving and getting stronger? Especially as like an entrepreneur, when you're getting into your big business and really getting into the next level, it's like, I got to keep growing, you know, I got to get ready to receive these like next level gifts that are coming my way. And, you know, it's hard to say. I've had a lot of really challenging experiences in my life that have all led me to where I am. So it's hard to even think of them as challenging now. It's like they're just total gifts. It's like I had to go through, you know, I had to go through everything we all do, and it makes sense in hindsight. And I had a few really big challenges. You know, I've struggled with substance abuse in the past, and so, you know, being in recovery and you know, that's been a huge gift. That's like, I think, one of the single most transformative experiences that I've had in my life. That's led me onto this path of spirituality, really getting to know myself, having the experience of genuinely connecting with others, and just developing this like deep self-love that I never knew I didn't have before.
Right.
So that I would say has been a huge gift. And also, a lot of different challenging career experiences of just being in jobs that were very, not aligned with what I really wanted to do, but learning so much from those jobs and sometimes letting the universe step in and just take care of stuff. Like, I mean, one thing I want to share, because it's just a crazy experience, is I was in all these different jobs. They were great. And my trajectory has always been, by the way, to have total job ADD and to be very over, just to be over it after a year. I'm like, okay, what's next? I'm over this. I maxed out. So I'd always be hopping around and I learn really fast and I grow really fast. So after a year, it's I feel like I've been there for 5 years. I'm done. So I remember a few years ago, maybe this is 4 years ago now, I was really happy at my agency, but I just wanted something new, I was I love all the new things that come with a new start. And I found this job and I was going to be doing in-house PR for this agency. And I was excited because it was something a little bit more creative and less strategy, analytics focused. Now, mind you, when you're interviewing for a job, the people that are interviewing you are totally selling themselves too, right? So you're not necessarily getting a clear idea of what it's going to be like to work there. In hindsight, it's kind of wild that, I would sign on the dotted line to work somewhere without actually knowing what I was really getting into.
Right.
So I started at this job and I knew really quickly that it wasn't a good fit. It just wasn't a good cultural fit. There wasn't anything wrong with me. There wasn't anything wrong with the place. It just wasn't a fit. But at this time in my career, I didn't know that was an option, that I could just say, this isn't a good fit. I'm going to leave. Or, just to be honest about that and up front, this isn't a good fit. I'm going to stay for 2 months and I'm going to be looking for another job. Something like that. Having an honest type of conversation. I didn't know that was available to me. In my mind, I was I'm going to stay for a year because it's important for me to have that on my resume.
And that's what everyone says. You have
and
to
that's
stay
what everyone
for at least
says.
a year. Right.
Yeah, and I just made that, somebody made that up, that's not real. And so what happened was, I ended up getting so sick. I got mono. Not even from making out with anybody.
Not even for a good reason.
Not even for a good reason. I got so sick, physically ill, because the brilliant thing is our bodies know when we're out of alignment and they will speak up. If we're not going to make a move, my body was get out of here. And I still wasn't listening. I was so stubborn. This is 7 months, right? And I think towards the end of the 7 months, I was applying to jobs, blatantly at work and just really asking for it basically. I'm please fire me. And, cause I was too afraid to leave. And, I got let go and they called me into the room. I knew that it was all happening before it even happened. And I just had this feeling of relief, oh, thank God, what a relief. And went through a lot of fear, right afterwards, oh God, what am I going to do? I don't have an immediate opportunity to go into. That ended up being one of the most transformative times in my life because the universe intervened and was you're done, you're free. I call it experience being freed. I was freed. And I got to just have this period where I got to really, heal from this traumatizing experience I'd put myself through. And then also have the experience of what I just shared, which is, that'll never happen again. And sharing with other people that, this is an option to say, this is not a good fit for me. Here's my suggestion of, for our alternative plan. But basically that time allowed me to really get immersed in my own creativity and vision for what I really wanted to do. I got a break essentially. I got severance for a month and I went home to San Francisco and relaxed with my family. And I made a website, I made a blog, and I just started writing. I felt so much creativity and this need to share what was happening coming through me because I was out of this stressful, exhausting situation, which is awesome. And then talk about magic. I had a few friends send me some opportunities to do consulting work. And I was and that brought up all sorts of other fear of wait a minute, am I qualified? Don't you need 10 years of experience to be a consultant? Have I done enough? Am I really
also stuff that people just tell you.
Well, I don't actually know who's even saying this. I think I just made it up. I don't know. It's who's saying that? I don't hear that anymore, It's just fear. And so anyways, suddenly I had 3 consulting clients within 2 months of being let go of from this job. And I was making up my contract, talking to my friends who had freelanced. I'm does this sound like a good rate? Does this contract seem right? And, I'll never forget the first day that I got a check in the mail for my first consulting project, which I was like, they're not even going to pay me. Like, they're not going to pay me. And then I
You
got the
didn't
check.
believe it yet.
No, I didn't believe it. And then I got the check in the mail, and that was the best feeling, having a company. It was a brand consulting client, and I had totally, I killed it. I'd helped them so much, and receiving a check for work that I had done just on my own without a representative agency or something it just felt so good. It felt so rewarding, and immediately all these beliefs were just smashed of like, and I think really what I learned through that is like, take so much of my knowledge for granted, like based on my agency environment, it's like I was playing very small in a lot of these situations. And once I got out there and I was really helping people and being of value and providing them with knowledge and support, I'm like, wow, I know so much. And these people are benefiting so much and, really learning a lot from me. This is incredible.
Yeah, some people, they call it the curse of knowledge. We think, everybody already knows what we already know. We don't have anything to offer. Whereas, like you said, you have a specialty and people want that information and will pay for it.
Totally. And you nailed it. Exactly. And not even just that, but what I've also found is that, there are many people that know the same things I know, but not everyone is going to want to work with the same people, right? So we actually all have this unique ability to connect with people in a different way. So my clients work with me because I can deliver information in a way that they can hear and understand and feel comfortable with, but maybe I don't work with every single person ever because other people need different things, even if we're sharing the same types of information and strategies and whatnot. So I don't know, that whole experience was just transformative in helping me see that and really recognize, my own potential and what I really have to offer, and certainly just built tons of confidence. But also like in developing this feeling that I think is really important now, especially in our current kind of climate of like, there's no competition. There's no competition, everyone is like everyone's doing their thing and we're all going to help different people. And it's not like, me winning a client is taking one away from someone else, which is just something I'm really trying to share as much as possible, and which I think you're doing in your community so well. It's like, let's all help each other. Let's all lift each other up. We're all trying to do the same thing at the end of the day. There's not like a scarcity of people to help.
Right. It's abundant. It's really what you're talking about. It really chimes in with an abundance mindset, right? Which we both have learned about. But yeah, you're so right. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's really, there's so many elements in there that are so powerful. And I know people will be able to relate to. I personally can relate to. First, talking about the fear of leaving, that whole idea of, well, I'm supposed to fill in the blank, whatever you're supposed to do, what people say, how long you're supposed to stay, what it's supposed to feel like, or that it's you that's the problem. And maybe it's not just a good fit. That was something that was important. And then coming to the point where you got sick from being in a space that wasn't a good fit, which a lot of us, especially as women and women entrepreneurs or just career women, don't realize that that's the thing that might be making us sick. We just think, oh, I'm in this position that I don't like and I'm not taking good care of myself. It's sort of like, well, no, they're probably a reflection of each other, you know? And then, like you said, taking that month or whatever time, first of all, seeing it as a release as opposed to something to panic about. I'm sure there may have been fear of, I don't have anything. What am I going to do? That's natural. But then coming to the point where you were like, you know what, I'm going to take this time to create a blog and take this time to build a website, and then going to your support network, which you mentioned earlier, how important that is. People started sending you things like, hey, are you interested in? And knowing, I always tell people, I think this is something we learned in Momentum too, of letting go of the how. Because how you wouldn't have been able to say, I'm going to lose my job. And then a few months later, people are just going to start sending me things. It's going to be fine. You know what I mean? You can't, I always say you can't script that. There's part of it that has to be a little bit of faith in whatever, mainly yourself. But something shows up for you as long as you keep, the thing with you kept moving, kept creating, kept trying to create something that you knew you were looking for. And now it's like things are in flow. That's my summary of your stories.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, and you nailed it. And it's just, I love having that reiterated back to me so beautifully because it's just like, that's it, like I just had to get so tired. For me, I'm so stubborn. Have to learn things the hard way, unfortunately. I
Me
think that's
too.
getting better with time. But,
Yeah.
that example is like, really? I'm like dying with mono and I don't understand. I'm like, what's wrong,
Right.
And ultimately, like, I see that as like a total, universe, divine intervention, if you will. Like, nope, like you got to get out of this job. Look at all these other opportunities that are available. Yes, there was a little bit of fear, but as soon as I just like let go and relaxed and really allowed
Mm-hmm.
myself to start healing from what had been this traumatizing experience, things were just happening really magically, just like happening without me even trying, even to the point where I'm like, can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then my part is just choosing to try to do it and choosing to
Right.
try to meet the opportunity and not
Saying
overlook
yes.
it. Yeah, and just saying yes. That's really was my only part in that whole thing, which I mean, I'll tell you, led me to like having this crazy experience with, interviewing for new jobs and just interviewing with this whole new energy of like really interviewing the other company and being like, what are you going to do for me?
Right.
Coming from this place of like confidence and knowing that I had this great value to provide and that, these are the things that were important to me in my next role. And I'm never going to settle for less again, so it really like shifted on so many levels how I was just coming into situations in all areas of my life. And then led me to, the dream job that I just recently left to start my own company, Pray Tell, which is like this fantastic agency. They're like the fastest growing PR agency in North America. They're the best group of people I've ever worked with. I found myself in this dream job situation, and I was there for 2 years and able to learn. So I knew while I had this short stint freelancing and working for myself, I still had this feeling that, there's actually more for me to learn. There's a little bit more that I want to learn.
Mm.
And now that I know what that is, let me find the right opportunity that's going to support me to
So
grow.
important.
Yeah. And so going into a job, I had never done that before. I had never gone into a job being like, these are the things I want to learn. This is what I want. Let me find that. It had always
Mm-hmm.
been prior. It was like, am I what you want? How can I be
Right.
what you want? So
Right.
just really flip the tables and had this incredible experience of growth and just flourishing and just healing, more healing, like wow, this an agency can exist where people are happy and where people are, purpose driven and where the agency gives away 100 grand in services every year and to nonprofits and I actually got to help run that program. So there were like these just total gifts, and I wasn't ready for them until that exact moment. And then leaving that job. So how do you leave a dream job? All sorts of fear comes up of like, why am I leaving this amazing job?
Yeah,
That's
how do you leave a
perfect.
dream job? That's pretty one I think it's
It's like,
interesting that you found something that you love because you went into it from a position of power. I think that's so important to say. But then like you said, okay, now you found this thing that you love. How do you leave? Why do you leave? What was it for you?
there's a lot of fear, a whole new set of always the fear coming up, right? And of like, what are you going to do without the stability? And this is great. It's perfect. And I mean, everything about this place is just perfect for me. It's perfect. It's an incredible place. I'm still like their biggest fan and I just, I go visit and I give everybody hugs and like I'm in love with them. But I just knew I had gotten this promotion back in January to director of operations and, I am a really analytical, organized, logistical person. I'm great at that stuff, but I'm also like highly creative and visionary and I want to be both. And so this role wasn't really affording me that opportunity, although I was doing a lot of recruiting, which was fun. I kind of knew as soon as I got the promotion, I'm like, this isn't aligned, this pathway that I saw, this trajectory wasn't what I wanted to do ultimately. And so I kind of had that seed planted, and this is just in January, and then started kind of putting some feelers out to the universe, like, okay, I need some like side hustle stuff to feel a little bit more nourished in my creativity. Like, what's that going to look like? And I had two startups come into my life like in February, like one through a friend who's shared an idea with me over Thanksgiving, and I was like, that's the best idea ever. Don't tell anybody else about that until you get some paperwork protecting you. And
Right.
and then another was actually a former client. That first client that had sent me the check 3 years
Mm-hmm.
prior reached out to me again and was like, I have this startup. I'd love for you to help with it. So,
Now, the things
suddenly,
that they, now, were they the things that, were they more on the business or branding strategy sort of side as opposed to the
yeah,
other things that you brought in later with your holistic part of the business? It was more
yeah.
branding strategy, the experience that you had.
Yeah, it was. So that makes sense too, right? It's like more of the transition from what I had really been doing more recently. And
Right.
I should say too, last September, so almost a year ago, I started a health coaching program with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Because even back then, it's so funny, my frame of reference, it's like things are always working way longer than before I could even like tell you
Mm-hmm.
straight. Like back in September, I was like, I want to be a health coach. I'd known I wanted to do life coaching and holistic healing for a long time and kind of had that feeling of like, who am I to think I can do that? There's so many people that do this who are so much better and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that imposter syndrome. And, and
Right.
I got my Reiki certification over a year ago. And so things just started kind of culminating. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need to be doing this. And so that was also cooking in the background. So I'm working with the startups. I'm like almost done with my health coaching program, or halfway done with my health coaching program. And a lot of seeds are being planted of like, I'm creating something here. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but something's happening. I felt like the universe was kind of sending me these opportunities to show me like that I'm ready and that, wow,
Mm-hmm.
like, I can be a marketing advisor to two startups and really, provide so much value and have a blast, have so much fun. Um, and so that was materializing very quickly until, I'd say maybe like March. March was when and I also started working with a new coach of my own in January. And it's no coincidence. All this stuff, it's like, I'm not on my time right now. It's like
Mm-hmm.
plan is laid out and all of it makes sense now. And so I was like, okay, I'm ready to leave. Like in March, I'm like, okay, let's make a plan for me to transition, which was scary. I'm like, what does this even mean? Do I need to save $10,000? Like how does this look? I don't understand. And
Right.
a lot of fear came up around that. And, but you know what? It all came down to just having a conversation with my boss. And I was so nervous, the most nervous I'd ever been. I'd never done that before. I just had never
Been
done anything
honest
like
about what
this.
you wanted to do and what you were feeling about the position.
And really just saying, I'm going to leave. I just kind of knew. It wasn't a question of like, I didn't need to have a conversation of, this is what I need in order to feel more comfortable here. I just knew that I needed to go and create my own thing. I knew that it was time. I was feeling very constrained and like, even though it was a dream job, I was having this sensation of like, I was
It
feeling
wasn't
so,
your dream job.
no, and I was feeling so expansive in my life. And then I would
Mm-hmm.
come into the office and I just feel like
You're
so
contracting.
very constricted and like almost like I just was dimming this light down, and that started to become very uncomfortable. So, I had the conversation and I was so nervous and I finally spit it out. And my boss, so funny, I love him. He's just like, oh, yeah, I knew you were going to leave. I had a bet that you're leaving in August, just like a few months later.
Oh my gosh. So
So
that's the
he
thing
just,
too. We think we're hiding things from people sometimes, but really when it's something that's truly in you that you really want to do, most people can sense it even if they don't know exactly what it is.
everybody kind of knew. And it
Yeah.
was, I'm like the last person to think it's like,
Right.
so, and then to just be totally like so supported, like my boss being like, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. Like, I so believe in what you're doing. Of course you're going to do that. I can't wait. Like, they threw me a going away party. They threw me like a morning rave dance party, like at the
Oh
office,
my
because I
gosh.
love doing like the early morning dance parties. And, it's just so fantastic and
I'm
left on
definitely,
such a good note.
yeah, I'm definitely going to have to link this. Called Pray Tell is the agency, right? We're going to have to link to
Uh,
them because they sound like a great company.
They really, I mean, and I can connect you with anyone that you want to speak to there. They are doing culture and, you know, creating this real community. It's like unlike anything I've ever seen. And, that's why they're getting press and accolades and, because it's true. They're so genuine and they're really talented people. So yeah, go pray tell.
Go Pray Tell. Now, one of the things that you wrote about recently on Medium was about teaching your first yoga class, which you talked about a little bit, you mentioned earlier, and overcoming fear. Speaking of fear, making mistakes and still going. So, how did
Mm,
you get through that fear, which the acronym was it false evidence appearing real for fear? Yeah, how
yeah.
did you get through that moment and keep going?
Wow. Oh man, talk about being so nervous. Like I was, it's so funny. I don't really get that nervous like nowadays. I really don't. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty confident and grounded most of the time, which is like total miracle, transformational miracle. But I think when I really care about things in a very deep way, such as like leaving this job to declare to someone I really look up to that I'm, going to go pursue my dream, shaking, and then eventually like crying in that conversation because I was so nervous. And then teaching yoga for the first time to a group was like, in a real class. It wasn't like, practice community class. It was like at the studio that I love practicing at, and the owner invited me to teach a real class full of like advanced practitioners. And I was just like, wow, this is such a dream. And I'm so nervous. I want to do this so well. I want to be like that teacher that people are just like, oh, wow, that was incredible. That helped me so much. I was getting in a lot of ego, right? Fear is always connected to so much ego for me. Like I start thinking about what I want people to think about me, and the type of result that I need to create to feel like I was, successful or impactful. And so, and I made a ton of mistakes. It was so hard. Yoga is like incredible, but teaching takes so much practice. And I've done a million classes. I've done a million downward dogs, like, and teaching the class and remembering right and left is like so hard. And the owner of the studio was in the class right in front of me, and I was just like, oh my God, she's such a star. And so I just had to really notice the ego coming up and really like, remind myself, like, just have fun. Have fun. This is a dream. You just did training to be able to do this, and you want to create space for people to enjoy their time and have fun and relax. So I need to be in that space too. And so I kept having to do a little bit like self-talk and like, because my mom actually, she's been an aerobics instructor for like 20 years or something. And I was telling her like, I'm so nervous. Like, what do you do when it was your first time? And she's just like, just have fun. It doesn't matter. Like, people make mistakes all the time. Teachers that have been teaching for 20 years make mistakes. Everybody actually makes mistakes all the time, even if you're an expert. Like, we're not perfect. Perfection doesn't actually exist. And so I just tried to really stay in that energy of like, I'm here to have fun, and even though there were some things that happened that weren't, totally as planned, it was an amazing class, and my friends came, and, I just felt so grateful. I almost was like crying at the end of it because I was so thankful for the privilege of just like people listening to me, like what a gift. Like you don't maybe think about this all the time, but what a privilege to be in a room and everyone's there, and they're really like, it's super vulnerable. Like you're guiding people to move their bodies in a specific way that, will cultivate feeling, maybe a spiritual experience, maybe like healing.
And you're doing the thing, one of the things you wrote too, you're doing the thing that you were afraid to do.
Yeah, I'm all about that these days, like, and that's my coaching is like, I help support people, to do the things that you're terrified to do, because, certainly in my experience, the things that you're most terrified to do are the things you absolutely have to do. Like you have to do it. The things that nag us, that keep us up at night, that we're scared of, that we're obsessed with, you just have to do it, and it's like the worst possible case scenario, and fear never actually materializes. So it's all about doing the thing anyway, and then the hope is that the fear continues to become more minimal, and you're able to have more confidence and freedom in your life, and really just have that clear intuition. That's what it comes down to for me again and again, is like clearing away the fear and the doubt and the negativity, so that I can just listen to that clear intuition that, wants me to have fun.
Right.
Like it wants me to have fun and be in this creativity and joy and love, really. So, it's a pretty simple breakdown of everything that I do. It all comes back to, how can I help people and help myself be in more joy and love.
Right. Now, for your clients, when you work with them, and I know all of this comes into play, as we said, but how do you combine, because you built the business that combines these two things, how would you work with the client, for example, with strategy, branding, those kinds of things, and then mindfulness or meditation? And is it literally teaching them how to incorporate all into their businesses, or is it just based on whatever the client needs at that time?
That's a great question. And I should tell you, just to be totally transparent, like I didn't know how any of this was going to look. I just knew that these are the things that I love to do. And so I'm putting myself out there offering, these things that I have to offer and share. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how that was going to look. And so I started my business knowing I had these brand strategy, kind of like marketing advising clients. And soon after, got a few more. And then, didn't really launch with a ton of life coaching clients. And I'd hoped that was something I would be building up, as I kind of had more time to put myself out there and share a little bit more about what I'm doing. And, but what I found is, in my brand strategy kind of consulting clients, I'm integrating all the stuff I do in life coaching anyway, because as an entrepreneur, your business and all your life stuff is all incredibly integrated. And so we have to talk about it when we're talking about your business and your vision and strategy. It's like, so it's actually beautiful. I feel like my clients, that they hire me to do kind of more business strategy stuff, but knowing they want to work with me, knowing that they can talk to me about all these other things and that I have other resources I can share. So no, we're not necessarily learning about mindfulness like in our strategy sessions, but maybe I'm sharing with them a meditation or an event, or they're getting my newsletter where I'm just helping them in some way. But I do want to share, I did just get a new coaching client who I'll be working with for I think almost a year. She's signed on to work with me for like a very long time, which is incredible. Yeah, and she's actually such a great example of the type of people I really hope to create relationships with and support. She's an entrepreneur, a business owner in San Francisco. She's a fashion designer. She owns an art gallery. She's incredibly successful visionary artist and entrepreneur. And she reached out to me. She's actually an old friend. We went to college together, but hadn't spoken in many years. And she reached out just saying, I really need support from, I think, exactly someone like you who's able to work with, the holistic healing side of things and then also the brand strategy. So our agreement for our coaching relationship is, coaching sessions where we're really looking at, ways to create balance and mindfulness and developing a spiritual practice, developing healthy habits around nutrition and self-care, and really helping build that into a schedule so it feels like she has more of a clear time frame to do all these things, Mm-hmm. So just supporting her around some of those things while helping her get clear on some of the other visions that she has for her business and helping support her with strategies. It's really like, I'm supporting her and helping just create priorities and be a sounding board for goals. And because also like, I really believe we all already have the answers that we are looking for. We have them. We know what we need. We actually know what we want. What's that thing of like asking for advice is really just, asking for like validation on what you already think.
Right.
like,
right.
Something like that, so it's like in coaching, I'm just there to help people get clear and get clear intuition on what's really important to you right now. And then I'm good at helping with the execution and strategy to get there. So I'm so excited to work with her. It's such a blessing and such a gift. You just never know how you're going to reconnect with people and maybe help each other one day. It's really beautiful.
Exactly. Now, one of the things, just a few more questions. One of the quotes that I saw was on your website, actually. It says, say it to yourself over and again until its echo becomes the lullaby that lulls you to sleep, the chimes that wake you. There is nothing I cannot do. There is no one I cannot be. Of this fact, you have always been the only one that needs convincing. I love that.
Ooh, I just got chills when I look at that all the time.
Yeah. Now, what's been a time in your life where you felt like you needed convincing, and how did you get through that?
Wow. I'm just always the only person in my own way, like really. I'm the only one that needs convincing, and I'm the hardest person I can't convince myself. I always need so much help. Lately that's been, I think that's been factoring a lot less in my life, lately, because I'm doing, work that's really in alignment with my vision, my highest purpose. So that's beautiful. When you're doing that, you have a lot less convincing that you need to go through because you find that things are just kind of happening more naturally. Again, that job experience I shared with you where it was just so awful and I really couldn't listen to my body. And my body was trying to convince me, ironically. My body was like, hey, we're dying over here. Let's go to the doctor again. And I really just couldn't see it. And even though I was asking for help and support, I was kind of in that state of like, I wasn't willing. I wasn't willing, even though people were telling me, I wasn't really able to hear. So, that was a time where I needed convincing, but I ultimately just needed to play out this kind of, suffering ultimately that needed to happen until I really learned at this deep level all the stuff that I shared with you. And then like less so, like another example is just like, I still struggle with kind of overscheduling myself sometimes and really wanting to do it all. And it's not coming from this place of like validation seeking anymore, which is beautiful. It's more coming from this place of like so much excitement and like happiness that I want to be involved in all these events I get invited to and all these things going on that my friends are doing. And so it's great to recognize that motivation, but sometimes I really always actually need to remind myself, like, okay, do we have enough time built in here for rest and self-care and all the things I just mentioned as like tips for women entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
I'm constantly working through those on my own. And I have a vision board, and I have a lot of tools that I use where I'm like, I have to remind myself and block out time in my calendar, week ahead of when am I going to have just quiet time and creative time. And that's getting easier with practice, though. I'm really happy to share that that's definitely become a lot more natural.
How do you advise your clients to get to the point where they realize they're the only ones that need convincing?
Yeah. Oh, well, hopefully with working together and just sharing, a lot of my work is just we share. It's like sharing, how are you really feeling, and encouraging and holding space for people to really share authentically and be honest with themselves. And just, really asking some deeper questions that might help someone really share what's going on a few levels deeper, than they may think. And in doing that, I find that, people are actually quick to see how they might be in their own way and how, they're actually the only one that needs to say yes in order to move forward. And that's just been my experience, like everything I share is just stuff that I've experienced and learned through being coached and being walked on this path, so I've experienced it so many times, and it's kind of like amazing to witness it happening in other people. And frankly, it has very little to do with me and everything to do with the willingness of the other person to just be open.
Mm-hmm. Now, one more question for you before we go. Thank you, first of all, so much for your time and generosity and being here. And it's great to see your smiling face, which is fantastic.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course. Now, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would it be and what would you say?
Wow. Someone just asked me this at an interview I was doing this past weekend, and that was like what I said, that my mom came to mind for the first time. It's just so funny, it's like I don't notice the things that are right in front of my face. And it just hit me really hard, because I had originally answered a similar question with like, Gabby Bernstein. I love her. And we have so much in common. And I love what she's doing. She's an idol of mine. I really look up to her. She's a total mentor, rock star. But it's when I think about like my life, it's my mom. Mm-hmm. I grew up with an entrepreneur who always supported me in doing what I wanted to do, even if it was like, dressing like a total weirdo, having a really hard time being like socially awkward at school and helping me find opportunities to express my creativity and putting me in different types of art lessons and extracurriculars and supporting me all the time when I was leaving jobs, when I was moving to New York, when I was moving to Santa Barbara to live with some guy that she didn't really think was that great. And she was just always like, I love you. You're going to do it. Like, let me know how I can help. And which I noticed is really something to be so grateful for, because not everyone's parents are that supportive. I think there would have been a lot of times in my life for my parents and my mom in particular to be like, no, I don't want you to do that. That's not a good idea. That's dangerous. That's irresponsible. That's, whatever. My mom just has always been like there for me to talk about stuff and give me real honest feedback. But even if she disagrees with whatever I'm doing, she's always like, what's best for you. Do it. You'll learn. And she, and especially starting my own company, she's like, yes, you're going to do it. She just sees the vision. She's the most like trusting person I know. And, I wish that I had that level of, I hope to one day cultivate that level of like unconditional trust that I know that she really has, and I think has really instilled in me from day one.
Oh, I love that. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So final question, how can we support you? Website, I'm going to have links to sydneycampos.com so people can see more about you. But what else can we do? Social media, anything you want to tell us about that's coming up for you?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming up. I'm going to be teaching workshops with hopefully Reboot, and then some other different workshops coming out of Key Labs hopefully soon. I'll be sharing about that on all my social channels. Some of the workshops are going to be about holistic entrepreneurship, ways to use social media to build your brand, and some other fun things like, partnering and networking to really, gain brand credibility, and even working pro bono and how that can help build a brand. And
where are
I'll
those?
also have
Is
some.
there information yet? Sorry to interrupt. Is there information?
Not yet, not
Okay.
yet. Just heads up, they're in the works.
Awesome.
I'm going to be having like some other video content and interview probably coming out soon from this event that I was at this weekend. And really, like, all that I ask is, follow me, connect with me. I write an awesome newsletter that I'm super pumped about. It's called Magic Memos, and I just send it once every 2 weeks or so. And you can sign up for that on my website just by adding your email.
And give us your website for the people who are just going to be listening and your social media.
Yeah, my website is sydneycampos.com. Sydney like Australia, Campos. And and just let me know if there's any way I can ever support you or help. I also love to volunteer. I love to speak. If there's any way that I could ever be involved in anything anyone in your amazing community is creating, I'd love to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're in the community. Such a great addition always, and good energy. I was like, I have to have Sydney in here.
Thank you so much, Elayne. I love everything that you're doing. It's so beautiful, and I just see it expanding and growing and reaching more people. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Before you go, a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners.
Oh, wow. What's one thing that you can do today to show yourself that you're the most important person in your life?
I love that. Thank you so much, Sydney. Hold on one second, okay?
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to my website, elaynefluker.com/podcast. So that's ELAYNEFLUKER.com/podcast. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I'd love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.